Yo, Shameen here. I want to go ahead and make a Dune review, which actually has nothing to do with the typical content on my channel. This is my first review that I'll be putting on YouTube, but I just wanted to make a video review because Dune is actually my favorite novel of all time. I love Dune. I've read the book like more than 5 times, maybe 7 times. I first read it when I was a kid. I think I was probably in 4th to 6th grade when I first read it, but I've read it a few more times again over the years. I've reread it in high school and as an adult. I think the last time I reread it was like 2 or 3 years ago. But it's one of my favorite books. I think it's the greatest sci-fi novel ever written, to be quite honest. And I just love how dense and layered it is. So of course I had to go see the movie when they hyped up that they had a new movie coming out for it. And honestly, I really liked the movie. Like while I was in the movie, like I loved it because visually it was a masterpiece. Like it was so visually stunning. Like it really brought the Dune universe to life for real on the big screen. Like this is the best Dune has ever looked in most cases. Like they got a lot of things right and even included a lot of little tiny details as far as the looks. Like Arrakis looked awesome. Oh yeah, by the way, this is going to be a spoiler review. So I'm going to talk spoilers. If you don't want to get spoiled, definitely get out of this video because I'm going to just talk. I'm going to spoil this movie and probably the next one because obviously this movie was only part 1. And so, yeah. The movie looked great. Like the costumes looked awesome. The House Atreides uniforms and armor looked good. Though I did have a small nitpick with Paul's character early on in the movie. I felt like he wasn't really wearing much of the Atreides military garb, which if you read the book, like you know, he should have been in some sort of a Atreides dress uniform almost the entire first part of the movie until they go into the desert. But he had like 1 or 2 outfits. He had one outfit on, which was like a really simplistic, like dark blue dress uniform on when the Emperor's envoy came to Caladan when they got the assignment to go to Arrakis. And then I think he also had something that was more of a dress uniform on when they landed on Arrakis and they had like the bagpipes and the ceremony, or they walked onto Arrakis for the first time. Other than that, I don't think he ever wore like Atreides uniforms or Atreides dress uniforms, which was weird because that's really what he should have been wearing. They seem to be making him wear more civilian clothes. Now, I'm going to just go through the movie, I guess, chronologically because the beginning was pretty good. The only thing I would tweak about the beginning was that I wish they would have had more time with the Mentat talk. They could have introduced the Mentats by name or had a scene with Thufir Hawat. But the Mentats kind of got sidelined. But the time on Caladan was cool, you know. They introduced some of the characters. They had the little training scenes with the Bene Gesserit training and the shield fighting. They got the shields perfect, just like the books. It's never looked better on film before, so I'll give them that for sure. They looked perfect, though I wish they would have elaborated a little bit more on the fighting. But they pretty much explained it, that to penetrate the shield, that you need to move very slowly once you actually get into it. And then you can kill once you slow down. So that's like that's why they use these melee weapons in a futuristic society. They didn't really explain this in the movie, but the gun technology called laser guns, if it hits a shield, it basically causes a small nuclear explosion, or what they call atomics. It causes an atomic blast. So they rarely use these projectile weapons and lasers because it can damage them just as much as it can damage the enemy if it makes contact and causes that atomic explosion. So that's why they pretty much use like swords and knives and ancient medieval melee weapons because with the shield fights, that's like the only way to kill somebody. They can't kill them with projectiles. So that was cool how they had everything in the beginning. the best part was probably when they introduced Mother Mohayam, which is basically the Bene Gesserit witch that works alongside the Emperor, or she's like in the Emperor's envoy pretty much, but she does her own thing. When she came and did the Gom Jabbar test, which is like one of the most iconic scenes that you'll see in like the miniseries or the other old movie that David Lynch did. They did that pretty well, though I would actually argue that it was better in the miniseries because you could actually, or was that the David Lynch version where you could see the hand like burning, like you could see like the actual pain that was being simulated, but it's all good. They still did a pretty good job. Lady Jessica, okay, so I thought they should have hyped up Lady Jessica more in this movie, though they did give her some decent hype. The voice, the way that they used the voice was really cool in this movie, which was true to the book. It sounded really cool when they did it, but the voice basically lets them have mind control over people. They basically like figure out how the person's mind works, and then they can say it in a certain pitch or tone, and it hypnotizes them basically. Though one thing to note in this movie, Paul, when Mother Mohayam used the voice on him for the first time, or during the Gom Jabbar scene, he just went like he couldn't stop her. But in the other movie and in the miniseries, he says no at first. He resists. So I thought that was an interesting change. I thought that like they made Paul's character a little less capable in this film, or they made his character need more development, because like they didn't have him being trained mentat. They didn't really show his competence or his ability to be strategic, or how he was an asset to the Atreides military already. Which, if you read the book, like he was already at that age, like invited into their strategy sessions and was like giving advice on how to deal with things. This movie didn't really touch on the details of the galactic politics going on. With basically, they have the Landsrad, or the Great 12, or the Great Houses. So House Atreides is one of those great houses, and it's probably like the most popular one. I guess all the other houses look up to Leto Atreides, so that's why the Emperor wants him dead, which I don't think the movie really explained that. The Emperor does not appear in this movie, from what I remember. He was not in this movie at all. I think they might have mentioned him by name, but he didn't actually appear on screen. So basically after they left Caladan and went to Arrakis, I thought that was okay, though I wish they spent a little more time ruling Arrakis and settling in. We could have had more interactions with Liet, Dr. Kynes, which the actress for Dr. Kynes was great. I thought she did a great job. Some people complained it was a what do they call it, gender bending? Because in the books and the stuff, Dr. Kynes is a man, because he's like the secret leader of the Fremen actually. So this was they deviated from that, because I'm not even sure if Liet or Dr. Kynes was the secret leader of the Fremen in this movie. I want to rewatch this movie for sure. They did it justice visually. Like the ornithopters looked perfect. The ornithopters have never looked so cool. Like when they put it, I was like, that's a freaking ornithopter. It never actually looked good in any of the other adaptations. So they fixed that. The outfits and the body armor was great. But I thought they deviated a little bit from the book, though I guess they had a chance to tie it up with the part 2, because this movie does kind of end, just so you know, this movie ends about a third of a way through the first book. So based on the first Dune book, they really did not even get to the halfway point from where we stopped in the IMAX. So there's so much more story to tell. It was weird because I wanted more movie. When it ended, I was like, what the heck? That's it? I wanted more of the movie, but then um, it was still long. I guess it was like 2 hours and 30 minutes or 2 hours and 45 minutes or something like that. I felt like they somehow wasted time. I was like, damn, how did David Lynch fit this whole story in like under 3 hours? But this was like, I didn't think that, well, I didn't think that it was all going to be told in one movie, but I didn't think it would end that early. Or I thought they should have gone a little farther. I thought the movie should have ended with the scene of Jessica and Paul being accepted into the tribe. They should have done Jameis's funeral. I thought they were going to have Paul say, cry, and, they would say, oh, he gives water to the dead. They would give him his names, his Fremen names of Usul and Muad'Dib. That would have been a magical way to end it, and kind of felt like, oh, okay, we got something out of this. The way it ended was so abrupt. I didn't like the ending at all. Not the fact that it ended early, but just the way it ended. But the villains were okay. Baron Harkonnen was good, but they didn't get into detail of the Harkonnens at all, really. Fade Ralph, was not in the movie at all yet. I don't know when he'll be introduced. But Raban was there, played by the guy who plays Drax the Destroyer in the Marvel movies, which, honestly, I wasn't really impressed by his performance. He was kind of just like, I don't know, kind of like big and dumb, which is not necessarily out of line with the character, but he could have had more distinction and personality, or, he could have, I don't know, he could have gave us more, I felt like. Let's see, what else was there going on in the movie? I mean, the attack on Arrakis was pretty good. The actual battle scenes were good there. Jason Momoa did a pretty good job at Duncan, Idaho, though I thought it was kind of weird they gave him so much screen time. I mean, I guess maybe if they're setting something up from the future books, because in the books, he definitely that character has a pretty significant role. But yeah, Duncan, Idaho, I feel like he had more screen time than like Thufir Hawat and Piter DeVries. Like the Mentats got no love, but then Duncan had like all this screen time. Lady Jessica even could have got a little more shine. I wish they would have highlighted more. Like, I wish they would have made her look a little more distinguished and really kind of like showed her power level more. Because I felt like the whole movie, they gave her shine in the Ornithopter when they were captured after the attack. They gave her shine when she used the voice on the guards, which is a classic, iconic scene in the Ornithopter, and she tells the guy to go kill the pilot or whatever. They showed that she had command. But other than that, and other than when she gets the jump on Stilgar at the very end, it was like she wasn't as dominant as she should have been. Like, she should have been dominant every scene she was in some way. Even if it was just like when they got to Arrakis and she would be like making arrangements inside the palace and different things like that. But we'll see how they do things in the next movie, which I don't think the next movie is confirmed, but it looks like it's going to do okay at box office to where they should highlight or greenlight it for another movie. Let's see here. What else was there that I wanted to touch on? The sound was great. I like the way that they use language in general within the movie, especially like the secret sign language between Paul and Lady Jessica, and the Sardaukar battle language as well. Those were cool throwbacks to the book. Like the Atreides had like some secret hand signs that they used to use. The best characters was probably Mother Mohayam, and I don't want to say Paul yet because they didn't give him too much to do. I did not like the fact that they did not have some of the iconic lines from the book, like talking about the traitor. That plot was totally left out. The Atreides basically got caught off guard in the movie, whereas in the book and the other adaptations, like they were explicitly clear that they were going into a trap, and Leto even knew it, that the Emperor was plotting against him, which in this movie, I guess he didn't really know the details or understand. Let's see here. Dr. Yue was kind of wasted a little bit too. It wasn't really that explored. Like, he was the traitor, but there was no impact as to why. They just said, oh yeah, they had his wife, or they kidnapped his wife, were torturing and threatening to kill his wife. But I feel like that wasn't necessarily a good enough answer for, like, it didn't explain the magnitude of what it was in the novel. Because in the novel, it was a big deal, because he had basically been conditioned to not be able to betray someone that he was working for. Like, it was like called imperial conditioning. That's why he had that black diamond on his head. But that thing signifies that he's physically incapable. Like, his body will not allow him to betray his master or like harm the person he's serving, because he's a doctor, so he's supposed to be able to treat any of the royals in the Imperium. So that was kind of glossed over, and it wasn't really addressed. So it kind of had a little bit less weight. Though I thought the guy who plays Leto, he did a great job in his final scene, the death scene. I mean, this movie, it was kind of dark for a PG-13 movie, which Dune is a very dark story. I mean, the Atreides basically get completely massacred and betrayed by their enemies. So by the time you're in the middle of the movie, like, House Atreides is already pretty much all dead. Like, all the characters that you just got introduced to are pretty much dead. They completely got wiped out. I thought that the pacing was okay. I actually liked the pacing. I wanted more movie. I obviously just want more Dune screen time. I was just mad the way they ended it. It was a little too abrupt. I didn't like the way they used Chani at all. Like, she barely was in the movie, really. She just was there as a vision. But then they didn't even give her most iconic line, which is, "Tell me of the waters of your homeworld, Usul." That was never said once in the movie. I was, like, waiting for them to say that. Like, I didn't hear plans within plans. They didn't really mention the Spacing Guild, or the Butlerian Jihad, or the ban on thinking machines. So there was a bunch of stuff that they left out. I guess some people could say it's useless exposition, but I mean, I thought it was some critical aspects of the world building that were left out. But I guess they wanted to condense it. I felt like they could have added more scenes, though. Like, some of this could have been tied up with like a few minute scenes, because I felt like we had too many scenes that lingered on the visual aspects of the story. Like, they had so many of these visual shots, which, don't get me wrong, they were amazing, but like, it would linger on them and focus on them for a second. And it was like, damn, all this time on visual shots, we could have explored some of these other aspects that kind of went below the radar. So I'm being a little nitpicky in my review. I think I would feel better if the ending was a little more satisfactory, regardless of the fact if it's a two-part movie or not. I feel like this movie should still stand alone as somewhat of a complete arc, which it would have been more of a complete arc if they would have finished Jameis's funeral and done the ceremony with accepting them into the tribe formally and giving them their Fremen name. So that's definitely a point against. But otherwise, they did a lot of things right too. The combat and the fighting was done really well. The Harkonnens were done good enough. They could have dipped into a little bit more of how perverse and sick and twisted they were. Same with Piter de Vries. I don't know if Thufir is going to come back in the second movie, which would be in line with the book. Definitely Gurney is going to have to appear again. And I'm excited to see how they show Paul actually becoming the Fremen hero actually becoming the Mahdi, at fulfilling everything and becoming a general badass. Because I mean, he basically is a stone cold killer by an certain point of the book. So this movie, I think, didn't even get to. It got to barely like 1/3 of the way through the book. I don't even think it's halfway through the book yet. So there's so much that they can do. I'm interested to see how they split the focus, how they introduce characters like the Emperor, Fade Ralph. I don't know if Count Fenring will be in this too. How they introduced the Spacing Guild. We haven't seen. We saw some guys from the Spacing Guild. They were just there. They weren't mentioned by name, but that was them on the planet in the opening with the Emperor's envoy. That was them with those weird helmets that were they kind of looked like Daft Punk, but those weird helmets in the you could see it had like the spice colored gas in there because they're constantly on the spice. Oh yeah, they could have talked a little bit more about the spice and not just the fact that it's used for space travel, but that if you're a certain individual with certain genetics or training, that the spice is basically supercharging you. This is what's happening to Paul on the planet. I didn't think that was really explained, that exactly how like the Bene Gesserit and all these different people use it to boost their own strength. Because Paul at this point, while he's on Dune, is basically getting supercharged, getting infected by all the spice, and that's what's activating his mind to make him have more visions and actually start becoming the Kwisatz Haderach. Is he's exposed constantly to all this spice, and he's already been bred with the genetics, and he's got the Bene Gesserit training. So yeah, I'm excited for how they conclude it. I want to see how they wrap up the story, what they do second time around. I wasn't completely satisfied, but I'm just a nitpicker because I'm a book reader and that's one of my favorite books. So I want them to actually like copy the book more. But they did a great job. I think they made it really accessible to mainstream audiences. So I would give it more. I would give it 7.5 to 8 out of 10. It would have got more if the ending was better, but they did a good job. I kind of want to re-see it in maybe a week or two. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Comment down below what you think, and yeah.